Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Biosophy Online. This is Dr. Eric Baseka, teacher, shaman, warrior, and just a man looking for a deeper truth, if you will, and trying to play his role in this world. Speaking of world, I was thinking on the way over here, sometimes, of course, we always talk about getting overwhelmed by the world that we live in, and it's just such a trap it feels sometimes, and we're so constrained, and we're so robotic, and we feel manipulated many times, and all that. Of course, that's on a certain level of reality, but isn't it wonderful when we can just realize at any moment that we live in the world, but we also live in the universe? We live in the universe. We're always in the universe, right? And therefore the potential greatly expands, doesn't it? Because what happens when you live in the universe? You become one who is in control of your destiny. You become that one who anchors and channels your free will. You become that one who understands, or may not, or may be studying how things really work beyond the senses, beyond the immediate appearance of things. That's what living in the universe is all about. It's noticing patterns. It's noticing beauty. It's noticing subtle energy, right? And so if we just can harness that and be in that moment for a second, let's begin with a little meditation of being in the universe. I apologize for some of the sounds that are coming from the road. I'm in a beautiful place otherwise, and I hope you can hear some of the sounds of the birds. Let's do a little breathing, and I'd like you to straighten up, sit up for a second. It'll be worthwhile. Take that nice inhale through the nose, and exhale. Become aware of this subtle force, this amazing, energetic compound that we're breathing in and exhaling. This very precious, odorless, weightless, colorless, magical substance that we call oxygen. Allow it to go down to the diaphragm as you deepen the breath. As soon as you do this, you begin to activate the production of serotonin. Deepen the breath and slow it down. Serotonin is the greatest regulating neurotransmitter that allows us to feel content. Try to find that pattern of breathing in 5 seconds and out 5 seconds. Then realize that now you are essentially creating optimal balance in your system as you breathe this exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. For the nature of the universe is exchange. Some would say light, some would say darkness, but it's exchange. That is, you cannot take a breath without giving one. And so you are becoming the universe by becoming conscious of the breath. And therefore you can do all things. You can direct your thoughts to any behavior or state of being that you choose with consciousness of the breath. Allow it to go all the way down past your pelvis into your legs. And allow your exhale to come through your third eye, that space in the middle of your brow and your forehead. And then take that inhale all the way down to the feet. Breathe down to the feet nice and slowly. Feel that grounding effect, and then exhale back out through the third eye. Cleansing the body, stabilizing the auric fields, activating the subtle energy body. Breathe consciousness down into the earth through your feet. Ground yourself. And then again, exhale through the third eye. That gateway, that portal to the afterlife and the spirit world. Wishing you all peace and blessings and balance as we begin our show today. That subtle body that we experience, that breath introduces us to, is sort of a bridge between the physical and the mental, isn't it? It's a bridge between the physical and the ethereal. And so when we talk about the subtle body, or the auric fields, or the celestial realms, or the radiant, some would call it the radiant body, that unseen area of energy that surrounds us is really where the breath comes from. And the consciousness comes from of the breath, what we should say. In other words, it's also known as prana. Okay, when we can channel that, then we are tapping into the subtle energies of our own system. And that first subtle energy body that we tap into that becomes somewhat physical is what we call the nervous system. The nervous system is the first part of the first aspect of us that we can actually sense on a daily basis and in our sixth sense, fifth dimension reality, or three-dimension reality, right? But beyond that, it's a little difficult. We're getting into ESP and things like that. But the nervous system is that subtle body that is first affected by the breath. So the breath is this bridge between the physical and the ethereal. And the breath ushers in that awareness of the nervous system, or that activation, or that balancing of the nervous system. Bringing it down and breaking it down a little bit to more of a mundane level. When we talk about oxygen, okay, the thing that every biochemical process in the body needs, everything that happens in our body and other mammals, of course, other organisms on Earth need. We're talking about this precious substance. Let's take a moment for a second and think about how precious oxygen is. You can go 30 days without sunlight. I think even longer, with no sunlight. I think obviously you can go 10 or maybe 2 weeks without food. Some have gone longer, depending on what we're talking about. You can go about 3 days maybe without water, 3 to 5 days. But without oxygen for about 3 or 4 minutes, you begin to lose consciousness, right? That's the first thing that goes, is consciousness. So look at that connection between oxygen and consciousness. It really is that subtle form of consciousness that allows us to experience true consciousness when we become conscious of the breath. All right, what a precious thing. And maybe if we thought of it in more precious terms and more sacred terms than just a scientific word, right? That oxygen. Okay, here's your tank. You have enough oxygen, right? But this is life. This is life, right? It's this thing. It's a gaseous substance that is essential for maintaining all life on Earth. Okay, and yet it's only one half of the equation when we talk about the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide being the other half. So it's a beautiful thing that when you think about all of this in place within the context of the universe, like we were talking earlier. And of course, the Latin word for breath is spiritu. Spiritu is also where we get the English word spirit, right? So the breath is the gateway to spirit. Oxygen being the conduit of that, the component of that breath, right? Mind you, and I thought this is something that's really interesting to think about. Anaerobic bacteria, viruses, fungi are not they do not contain oxygen. Oxygen does not exist in those life forms. So when we say it exists in all organisms, it does not exist in those life forms. And so therefore, what does it tell us? Well, it kind of hints to the fact that those things, when they do encounter oxygen, are literally challenged and stifled to exist. And so one of the things that we're going to be talking about later on down the road here, hopefully if I have more time, is the healing power of oxygen, which I really believe, I mean, when we talk about the future of healing, so much is going to be opening up on this planet and in this new earth realm. Sound, vibration, we know all those things are part of the whole set of modalities that await us and that are being used now even. But oxygen will be huge. If we can, of course, channel and learn about it and sanctify it, if you will, to the place where it needs to be, it is an all-healing substance. Okay, and isn't it ironic that it's the most simple thing that we can probably access, but it can heal the body, okay, and the organism. Mainly, one of the things I want to get across here about oxygen, when we look at America, there was a study done right before COVID. Between 80 and 90% of all Americans do not get enough oxygen to their cells to maintain normal levels of health. I'll say that again. Between 80 and 90% of all Americans, and I'm sure it's worldwide, do not get enough oxygen to their cells to maintain normal levels of health. We don't breathe. Why not? Well, I'm sure it won't take much of a bounce for us to realize that we're always running around, we're always stressed, we're not conscious of our breath, we're not conscious of being in our body, we're in our minds constantly, right? The story is right there in front of us. But if we could learn to just breathe within our actions and breathe in circadian rhythm and breathe when we think of it even, this would change a lot of the conditions that we're dealing with in this country. And I really believe in that. And this is why I want to spend so much time. And this is why really my main modality is medical meditation, what I'm going to be discussing. And I'm not the first one to coin this term, but certainly hasn't been used at all. I'll talk about more, where that comes up with. But just coming back to oxygen, one more thing. We know that when it's inhaled into the body, there's quite a process that occurs there. This is a very elaborate process. But basically, red blood cells carry oxygen from the lungs, once it hits the lungs, to the rest of the body. Okay, that's why red blood cells are really important. After releasing the oxygen, the red blood cells pick up the carbon dioxide from the blood, from the plasma of the blood, and then return it back to the lungs, okay, so that it's clean. And that's when we exhale, okay? Now, the immunorespiratory system is something that's amazing and just a miracle of life. When you look at the bronchioles that come down from the trachea and the larynx of the throat are just like the trees I'm looking at right now. They're literally the trees, the roots, the upside down roots that grow from the apex of the lungs, right? That go all the way down. Now, the smallest bronchioles, that is the thinnest ones, go all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, where the thicker ones are at the top. So those bronchioles are really important as far as carrying the oxygen to the alveoli of the lungs. And so, yeah, we're talking about an upside-down tree. If you look at sacred anatomy here, I think it's important to note that the right lung is a little bigger than the left lung. There's probably a reason for that, in that we know the left side of the chest is where the heart is. And it's also the feminine side of the body, isn't it? So that left aspect of us, if you will, is a smaller lung, and the right has 3 lobes, where the left lung has 2 lobes, okay? So oxygen is necessary for every chemical reaction that happens in the body. When cells are not breathing, they cannot think. This was one of the big things that even Dr. Ali and I also discussed, I believe, that during COVID is that, you know, when the cells in the lower part of your lungs are not being exposed to any air, just like the brain, when the brain's not exposed to any air, oxygen, it can't think. And it's the same with the body because the cells in our body are each little brains. That's what they are. They're conscious. They're electromagnetic. And when they don't have oxygen, they're not able to distinguish the difference between a virus, an invader, and a neurotransmitter or something that's good, right? So breathing cells are thinking cells. And this is why oxygen is also so important. I mean, all the fuel that's burned from food and oxygen eventually converts to ATP. But you need two-thirds of that fuel has to come from oxygen. Two-thirds of the fuel that comes from the body has to come from oxygen. So we thought, we're obsessed with eating. I know I am. But oxygen is also something to be obsessed with as well. If we're going to, because we need more of it than we need food when it comes down to relative mass consumption of it. Okay, so ATP being that primary molecule that accepts energy from the breakdown of food and oxygen. Okay, so anyway, um, after that process, when we talk about the red blood cells and distributing oxygen throughout the body, it's also crucial for the immune system to be oxygenated because white blood cells use oxygen to kill bacteria that we've ingested. Okay? It's just essential. Toxic compounds are converted to harmless derivatives through oxidation reactions. So all of this happens. General health, digestion, circulation, liver function, all of it. Healing. The body's unable to cleanse itself or repair itself without oxygen. Most of us, especially those people who are experiencing sickness or chronic illness, especially cancer, are are experiencing oxygen deficiency, which is called hypoxia. Okay, when we look at every cancer patient that's out there in the world, they're all experiencing hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen. A few of my professors uh, in my program, my naturopathic program, wrote books, wonderful books, and I wish I could look them up if I wasn't doing a show right now. I should have brought them on board, but they did some tremendous work that showed just the primary modality for treatment of cancer with oxygen. Period. Just oxygen alone was incredibly transformative. So that starvation at the cellular level leads to disease. When we don't have oxygen, it just leads to disease. So foreign chemicals also, when we look at the xenobiotics that are introduced into us through pollution and through a lot of the pharmaceuticals that we take, those decrease our oxygen stores. Okay, that's what leads to free radicals that are that start to wreak havoc and cause inflammation in the body. Physical trauma can reduce circulation and oxygen supply to the cells. Okay, damage is frequently done after an injury. Emotional stress produces adrenaline, and adrenaline needs a lot of oxygen to really fulfill its duty in the body for that extra energy. All right. So medical meditation then comes into the picture when we look at the different ways that let's just say the body breathes, because the lungs don't just breathe, the body breathes. The whole body breathes. The cells can breathe through the mitochondria. There's actually little organelles in each cell and each mitochondria that are almost like lungs. So every cell in your body breathes when you breathe, especially when you breathe with consciousness and with purpose and intention. And that's what medical meditation is about. And that's what we're going to start talking about. I'll further define it a little bit down the road, but of course, diaphragmatic breathing, what we just did, is ultimately one of the major modes of medical meditation. But don't forget, let's look at the body now through a sacred lens, a sacred anatomy for a second. Our body is a anthropomorphic representation of the universe. Okay, and that's, I mean, the ancient chemists saw the body as Egypt, with the river flowing upward into the brain. That was the vagus nerve, and then the third eye and the crown opening into the delta, right, up into the Mediterranean Sea. The pyramids were at the heart. Okay, there's a whole bunch of esoteric knowledge about the body from ancient Egypt alone. And then the Ayurvedic system was similar. So the body, the sacred body, if you will, sacred anatomy, is really important to understand when we talk about meditating and using the breath to our advantage. Sure, you can do a meditation every day and just become conscious of the breath. That's powerful, and that's wonderful. That might be all the time that we have, to put forth. But medical meditation is something I've been doing every morning. At least I have a class going right now every morning with a couple of individuals who are doing this practice, and it's changing them. And I'm incorporating a couple of different somatic and sattvic and pranayamic exercises that allow the whole of the body, that 360-degree perspective of the body, to benefit. Because let's cover your right nostril right now. Taking a nice big breath through your left nostril. All the way. Now hold it at the end. Now switch and breathe out forcefully through your right. You can hold it at the end, a couple seconds. That exercise right there, when it's done for about 2 or 3 minutes, literally balances out the functionality between the nervous system and the immune system. Okay? So we have 2 nostrils, we have a mouth, we have a whole immunorespiratory system, we have the consciousness of each cell in the body, we have the mind, we have the subtle body, the pranic body on the outside. We have so much that we can tap into when we breathe and breathe consciously, that there are different things and different aspects of awareness that we can create for ourselves when we breathe in different ways. There's an exercise that really boosts the immune system, and it got me through COVID. I swear by it. And it's just simply Kapalabhati, what's called the shining skull in Sanskrit. And I'll just breathe out for 3 minutes with a certain mudra, and I'll talk about that. And I'll make this sound. And I'll gaze at my third eye, which all of these things have meaning and effect. Tremendous for the immune system. I can verify it. All right. So there's a whole science here, and of course, we always want to pay homage and respect to the roots of all of this. I certainly didn't come up with any of this myself. I might have adapted things here and there. I certainly have been a student, a humble student of the science of breath for a lot of years, but all of it came from the ancients and came from that ancient advanced knowledge of the Vedic peoples and the Kemetic peoples, and wherever the origins are. It's been here for a long time. Okay, and maybe a lot of it was practiced in caves at a certain time, and a lot of it now is in yoga studios. But there is so much to learn that we haven't even touched. We really haven't even scratched the surface. All right, the diaphragm is important to understand. It's that sheath that separates the chest cavity from the belly. All right, a lot of people think you can breathe air into the diaphragm. You don't breathe air into the diaphragm because air can only be physically absorbed through the lungs. But what happens when we breathe diaphragmatically is that's when all of the chemical processes start to change. That's when the brain, that's when the neurotransmitters start to activate and things start shifting back into balance. Breathing down to the diaphragm. Now, what does that mean? That means slowing the breath down and actually mentally bringing it down past the sternum to the belly button. And what happens is the diaphragm then pushes down like a bubble onto the intestines, into the solar plexus, if you will, which is a very sacred place. And what does that do? It activates the center for where most of our neurotransmitters are produced. Our neurotransmitters, that is, when I say neurotransmitters, serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine, epinephrine, all of these chemicals, most of them, serotonin being one of the most important, are produced in the solar plexus, the second brain, if you will. So the second brain down here in the solar plexus gets active only when we what? Breathe down to the diaphragm. That wakes up the solar plexus. So diaphragmatic breathing is crucial to any meditation practice. Slow, prolonged, deep, rhythmic breathing with awareness. That's meditation. That's the gateway to meditative states. Now, medical meditation covers that, and it also covers the full spectrum of breathing to all the way to Kundalini yoga and things like breath of fire, which is almost the opposite in its speed, at least, or in its effect as meditation. But all of them in between, that whole spectrum in between, are various different modalities of shapes and sounds and forms and rhythms and speeds and awarenesses of the breath. And so breathing is a complete science, everybody. It is a complete science, as if you had to study biology, the trees, the soil. The breath is that involved. It's that complex. Okay, and then when we talk about the functionality of the lungs and the alveoli of the lungs, where that exchange takes place between oxygen and carbon dioxide, when oxygen isn't reaching the alveoli, especially what we call the back alveoli of the lungs, that is the lower bottom portion, even the backside of the lungs is often dark and never sees the light of day, never sees the light of oxygen, if you will, because oxygen is light. When we start to breathe and we do these exercises like Bhastrika and breath of fire and bring oxygen down to those areas of the lungs that have never experienced it on that level, we wake up different aspects of ourselves that we've never been aware of, and different aspects of reality that we've never been aware of. And we achieve and we reach different frequencies that we've never experienced before. Why? Because light, or oxygen, or electromagnetic life force, or prana, is now reaching areas in our physical body that had never experienced it. And the first physical experience is through the alveoli of the lungs, which is, the alveoli have to be very quick and very precise. The alveoli are the small microscopic molecules that within them, they're like little sacs. Within them is where the oxygen changes to carbon dioxide and pushes it out. It's like in a boxing match, it's like having a left-right. If you're going into a professional boxing match and you only have a left, or you have a weak right, or you have a weak, you're not going to make it very far, right? So it's the same thing with the alveoli. We need to bring that oxygen down there so that we can push out the carbon dioxide, which is just as important. Getting rid of carbon dioxide out of the body is getting rid of toxins. So that process we need to almost work at it every day. You can do a breathing routine and a workout every day without even getting up off of the ground, but really working out your lungs and creating a healthful system by working with the breath. Okay? So we have some exercises that are one-sided. We have, this side is the male. It's the Pingala in Ayurvedic terms. Or the nervous system is on the right side. On the left side is the female, the immune system, also known as the Ida. Okay, the left side is magnetic. The right side is electric. Same with the front of the body and the back of the body. Okay, same. Okay, we're the four directions. This is, all the sacred anatomy stuff. So we utilize that stuff in medical meditation to understand what we're actually doing here, knowing the duality that we live in and using it to our advantage, because duality is not such a bad thing all the time. I'm going to pause here, and maybe we can even do a little exercise if you like, and go into the heart a little bit. The heart is, of course, really, I haven't even talked about the heart. There's so much to talk about. The right side receives that hypoxic blood. That blood that needs energy is received in the right side of the heart, which pumps to the lungs and then enters the left side before being pumped in the body. So the left and right are really important. That heart meridian that goes from the inner arm right out to the lung, or right out to the hand, the meridians are all involved, and there's a lot happening there. So let's do maybe a little bit of an example here of something you can practice on a daily basis. Bhastrika. Bhastrika means bellows breath. Now, if you have high blood pressure, there are precautions to some of these techniques, especially when we get into breath of fire. But I think the complete breath of Bhastrika will help you immediately, and it's not going to do any harm to anybody who's just under normal healthy conditions. But if you do have high blood pressure or heart condition, you might want to watch a little bit and just feel out, how you feel. And there's nothing that's going to knock you off your rocker and give you a panic attack or anything like that. But especially when we breathe through the nose. Bhastrika is a great way to start the day. But actually, before Bhastrika, we do this. And that is, you're sitting, I know some of you can't see me right now, but if you're sitting, you just do you do about 10 shoulder shrugs, okay? And you take an inhale for each one. So it sounds and looks like this. You're breathing in through the nose, okay? And what you're doing is you're creating the flow of blood to begin, and that lymph to start draining from the top of the shoulders down and the neck down, and you're creating that flow into the heart. So we usually do about 2 or 3 sets of those, and then we begin something called Bhastrika. Bhastrika means bellows breath. It is the one of the best exercises for bringing oxygen down to the lower lungs and bringing that strength and stability and that thinking power to our cells. And I do it in cycles. The cycle goes as follows. You can try this. Take a full exhale out of your nose. Push it all out from the belly. Push it out. So you push all the air out till you can't push it. Now begin to inhale through the nose. All the way till you can't anymore. And then push it all the way out again. All the way to the end of the road. And then when you're at the end of the road, pull it back in. You're literally pulling it down to the belly. Try to just activate the belly. Don't use the chest. This is all belly work. Push it out one more time. And this is the third one. Now pull it in one more time, all the way down. Best done on an empty stomach, of course. Now, you're going to speed it up a little bit. On the way out, push it out. Now pull it in. Now push it out. Now pull it in. Now push it out. Pull it in. Push it out. Pull it in. And then you would go faster if you feel like it. Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. All through the nose. Pumping the belly, not the chest. That's the bellows. That's the fire. And then take a nice big exhale. Push it all out one final time. And then pull it all in one last time. Pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it all the way in. And then hold that breath. Hold that breath. You can clench your pelvic floor, the anal sphincter, the sacrum, clench those muscles a little bit. Hold the breath, hold the breath, hold the breath. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right, that's a typical cycle of Bhastrika, and just one of the exercises that we do in the morning for our class. Ideally, you do this in the morning. There's nothing in the belly. You can pump the belly and use the diaphragm at will because there's no food in there, or at least not a lot. Most of it's in your colon by that point. Any responses to that or questions? Anyone able to do that? Any questions that you would have about it?
I love the breathing exercise. It makes you can actually feel vibrations in your body.
Yes.
And I think it's called fire breathing.
Mm-hmm.
I think fire breathing is like it's heating up your all your insides with something natural. And again, your setting is wonderful, and the birds are great background, and let everyone know it's all natural. So it's beautiful for the conversation.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, thank you.
You see the different levels of awareness you gained from that one, Ivana? You're noticing everything now. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yes, so ideally you would do this outside or somewhere where you do have enough oxygen. And you're right, it does. It gives you the heat that the body needs without being overheated. All right, and of course, I've been doing this for a long time. I experiment on myself first. I started doing this in South Philly about 7 years ago. I just got up one morning. I don't know maybe what planets aligned for me or whatever, but life was hard at the time. I was working in the prison, and one cold January morning, I got up and I had been reading and learning a lot about this stuff, but I just went into this routine, and I stayed with it all the way through COVID, everything, and I started to adapt the routine and try different things and work with people, and it's just been an amazing process. And some of the people we have in class right now will test, they can verify that it is life changing. It's something that you become almost addicted to, but it's a great addiction. It's a great addiction, and it takes away from all those other addictions that we need that are material and destructive. It replaces those with a true high that you're really seeking, because that's what you're seeking, the high, right?
Hey, Eric.
Yes, Mama. How are you, Andy?
I'm great. I am supreme.
So wonderful to have you on from Jamaica.
So pleased. I'm so pleased I worked it out. I had to swap something out, and so here I am. Great class. Oh, my gosh. And, I can attest to that, Eric. The high that you gain, it's just putting that fire in the engine. Many years ago, I suffered from depression and learned these breathing techniques and realized that was what was going to help me to get out of that hole and to fly. And so, there's been an addiction. It's my healthy addiction.
Wonderful. Yeah, it is. The habit and addiction are there's a fine line there. Yeah. And I know, Andy, you do a lot of quantum work as well. And we've done some breath work together in Jamaica. And Andy and I are actually going to be hosting a digital detox retreat in December, which is December 26th to the 31st, if anybody's interested. She's going to be working on the quantum level, and I'm going to do some of the breathing and some of the martial arts stuff, and it's going to be incredible. We have this amazing piece of land in the hills, right maybe a couple miles from the beach in Negril. And anyway, if you're interested, let me know. But we're going to try to create kind of an alternative holiday and a break from the digital interactions that we have too much, of course, that are happening with all of us, and giving us some true radiation, right? And replacing this digital mayhem that is causing a lot of us to experience excessive anxiety, acute anxiety, and mental imbalance unfortunately, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but unfortunately with our youth a lot. And but coming back to the medical meditation, I am going to continue doing the workshops. Let's see how much time we have here. I have a few minutes. Just some benefits of the medical meditation and a little bit of background. It is a combination of sacred anatomy, pranayama, kriya yoga, kundalini, and we do tap into, now there's such a thing, some of you might have heard of opening um, different chakras. You open your third eye, or your solar plexus opens, or you open your heart chakra. Some of that will happen, and we've experienced some of that even with the class. And nobody could tell what's going to open for anybody, because everybody's in this very particular place with their own constitution and their own journey. So some people experience different things, but I dabble with Kundalini, and I kind of say I just kind of play, just kind of engage the serpent of the Kundalini at the base of the spine so that it's awake. And getting that serpent to crawl the spine is a process. And a lot of you, maybe some of you have heard that it's dangerous and things can happen. Certainly that's possible. But when you're breathing correctly and you learn how to consciously breathe, and you take your time and you become aware of your body, you become aware of the consciousness that you hold, then Kundalini is not a dangerous thing. There's no danger in it. If you're guiding yourself properly, if you call on your guides and your angels through proper mudras and mantras, then it's a beautiful process, and you can slowly awaken the Kundalini and use the force of the Kundalini to your benefit. So yeah, absolutely, Kundalini is a big part of it. It is the spine, and understanding the spine is very important. The 4 parts of the spine, and how this affects the different areas of the spine. We do certain movements and certain yogic postures that help facilitate the breathing. And so it's a whole, there's a whole science here. It reverses cell degeneration. This breathing will allow you to not age. I don't know if I said that properly, but it's not like we're going to be immortal. We're not trying to avoid death. We certainly, some of us might welcome death by this time, but this gives us quality to our years, and it adds years to our life. When you learn how to breathe, when you learn how to do this type of work, you're adding quality, you're adding good feeling, good energy, high frequency to your life. It clears trauma, and clears trauma-related anxiety and the emotional knots that occur in the biofields. I know Dr. Ali knows a lot about those, Andy as well. The knots that occur, right, that create that stuckness in the biofield. This breathing, the breath of fire, literally undoes those knots. Okay, so it allows the nervous system, that subtle energy body, to work congruently with the immune system. And so many issues that we have, autoimmune conditions particularly, are because the nervous system and the immune system are not congruent. They're not working together. And I would add in the endocrine system as well. But what medical meditation does is it creates that balance between those 3 systems. And that is crucial. That is crucial for optimum health. It activates the hypopituitary axis, all those glands in the middle of our head, in the middle of our brain, so that they communicate with the second brain and allow neurotransmitters to travel up and down the spine and to the rest of the body to create that chemical balance in the blood. Storing prana in our tissues and in our cells, in the mitochondria of our cells. Storing, what is prana? It's light. It's light, right? It's oxygen, but it's light. It's consciousness in our cells. So like I say, when your cells are thinking, when they're oxygenated, they're thinking, they're conscious. They know what's good for them and what's not good for them. You don't need to take extra medications and pile up this and that thing to try to, when you have cells that are able to think on their own, they know what to do already. They know that's the innate healing that is in each one of us when our cells are alive. Okay? So the medical meditation is just manipulating energy in the form of thought, breath, sound, and shape. All right, and so that will be the intro for the day. You can try your Bhastrika. If any of you are interested in jumping on in the morning, we do 6:15 on the weekdays and 6:45 on the weekends on WhatsApp. If you think this would be good for somebody else that you know, pass it on. I enjoy, guiding people through. I'll send out a little info for them before we would start so that they know what to expect. And we're going to continue talking more about medical meditation next week, and we'll dive into some particular exercises and a little intro that you can maybe get started for yourself. Remember, meditation is more than medicine for the body because it connects the body with the greatest healing force in existence, and that is the subtle prana that exists in the spirit world. It connects us to the spirit world while grounding us on earth. Remember, everybody, we are the seeds for our own universe. And when we bond with each other, we create the multiverse, the omniverse, that is even more expansive. So as you become more aware and as you do this inner work, link up with your brother and sister as well and share your experience with them. And I highly encourage you to invite any more friends on the line. We'll be back in 2 more weeks with more Biosophy online and medical meditation. Think of any questions that you'd like to come up with for next week as well. Any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to express, anybody? I wish you all happy breathing. Thank you very much for being here. You are what makes this show happen. Give thanks and reach out anytime, okay?
Eric, I think you missed Dr. Jacqueline had a question, I believe.
Oh, did she? Go ahead. She did. I thought she was clapping. I can't.
No, I was clapping. That was a reaction. It was a clap.
All right.
Thank you, Andy, but it was a clap. Yes.
I'm clapping too now.
All right.
All right. It'd be nice if we all meet in person one time. We'll make it happen. All right, everybody. Peace and love. Take care of yourselves.
One love.